morning, and thank you for coming to the profile of the class of 2024.
Right.
I'd like to introduce Dr. Peter Tragos and Dr. Paul Sally, who will share some great insights and data with you all. Thank you.
It's great to be here. Looking forward to the presentation. This has gone through so many different iterations. One of the things that happened, was it 2 years ago? Is this the second year we've done this in
Second
September?
year, yeah.
This group, the group who was here, said, we'd like this earlier because we used to do it in December. And so based on that feedback, as an example of what can happen here as we talk about the report, is we made the shift to do it early in the year so that the information could be out there for the current seniors to do something with. So excited about talking about it. I'm going to turn this over to Peter to start us off.
I will. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out on a rainy day. This may have kept some folks away, so we're glad you braved the weather. And given our numbers today, Paul and I were just quickly huddling, we can maybe have a little bit more of a conversation around here. It's not quite a round table, but we would fit around a round table, and we could have something like that. So we'll present some of this, and then I think we have a formal part of it, but I think given the size, we can just open it up for some questions that you may have in doing that. So one thing to note is this is the 15th year of the report. Somebody was just asking me that, and Paul started this report, so I want to recognize the creator of the report here. I picked it up when I became assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, which was Paul's role before superintendent, and we've continued it because it's been important both for us as a school, not individually, but us as a school, to track course taking patterns and understand what students do in their 4 years at New Trier, and then how that translates to the outputs of the college matriculation in this particular case. It helps us inform to check our own selves about how our students are matriculating through New Trier, the choices they make, where they make some choices, and how they may change over time. And it helps us with programming and staffing and all of those kinds of things. So with that, we'll share a few of those things, and then the purpose of the profile here too, and we'll start here. Maybe I should ask, how many of you have current seniors right now? Okay, juniors? Sophomores? Freshmen? All right.
Younger?
Younger.
Yeah.
Graduates? Okay, great. Well, good. We hope you find this useful and informative. We'll start with the purpose here, and then move to a couple of the big parts here. Really, the idea here is we want to offer a perspective on academic pathways through New Trier. The flexibility and fluidity of the level system, I think that sometimes we have heard in our roles and continue that it's not flexible and fluid. I think there's some data that shows that it is indeed, and we can certainly talk about that as you may have questions. Look at college matriculation data for each graduating class, and in this case, inform parents about what students do and how the information may be useful. Just to so you know, on the right-hand column here is the data set includes 866 students that we call four-year students or four-year graduates. These are students who have been at New Trier for 8 semesters. They started and graduated from New Trier. There are 940 students in the class of 2024. They had different patterns. They transferred in, they came, they left, they came back, all sorts of things. So we're talking about a subset of the 940, and that's what you see in the data here. So with that, there's really 2 big sections to the report. The first is course-taking patterns that we'll talk about now, and then the other part is college matriculation. You see that in the college matriculation tables at the end in this. So a couple quick facts about this class to remind you of this. This was a class of 2024 whose 8th grade year was the COVID year. So, from March to the end of the school year, they were in 8th grade. They probably finished middle school. They did finish middle school remotely and probably had a remote graduation of sorts. They began their freshman year in remote learning at New Trier as well in August of 2020, and then they had 3 different bell schedules. So they had they've had 3 versions of a block schedule, actually, is what they've inherited. So they've been through a lot. Bell schedules are not things that schools change lightly or frequently. So to have 3 different ones is pretty remarkable. The 2 previous classes had 4 and 5 before them. So we're on the back end of this. I can promise you all of that. I think I can. So with that, I'll share on this, and I think this is page 4 in the report, is looking at student level profiles. I show this just as a visual cue so you can get to the page if you want to look at it. We're not going to read this line by line or cell by cell here. The idea is to show some distribution, and I'll make some highlights here. We talk about core classes, and when we talk about core classes, we're talking about the core 5. English, math, social studies, science, and modern and classical languages. So when we talk cores, we talk about everything else that's going to be in the elective category that we talk about. If there are 3 headlines to this report, they are these things. Three headlines, it's this. 1, more students are taking a program with mixed levels. 2, more students are taking a program with at least one 4-level class in it. And 3, more students are taking at least one AP class over the course of their 4 years. So with that, I'll illustrate those 3 points in that. Paul, anything to add to that at this
No, it's
point?
great.
Okay. Here's where I would note some things that I think are important to recognize. And this is what's highlighted here are the number of students who take all of their core courses over 4 years at a single level. So we'll start top to bottom. Students who take only 4-level classes for all 4 years in their core area is, you can see the number here is 3% of students, well 26 you can see, but I was highlighting the percentage, is 3% of students. It's down from 3.9 last year. So parentheses is class of 23. And then students who take only level 3 in the core areas, 1.6, down from 2.6, and then only level 2 is 1.2, down from 3.4. You can see the raw numbers if you can read in the light gray. The point was just the percentage. It's a small number of students. The vast majority of our students take a mixed level profile in this over the time here.
Can I just make one comment
Please
on
do.
that? The original report, part of the reason for it was actually that first line, which is only level 4 courses. So the myth that was out there, we had deciles at the time, was that to be in the top decile, 10% of the class, you had to take all level 4 courses. And that was the pressure that people were feeling. This report has shown that number pretty consistently, 3% to 4% for however many years we've been doing it, 15 years. And it's those myths, and it's getting into the data, which I think has helped all of us as a school and parents and families to sort of piece through what's the right path for each kid. So,
Great, thanks for that context. To the point about the vast majority of students taking a mixed level, I'll show it in one note here, but one note is to look at the increase in the percentage of students taking a mixed level profile that includes classes at level 2, 3, and 4. You can see that percentage at nearly 20% in the class of 24. In that level 3, I'm counting level 9 in there as well. Okay, so those both are 3 or 9 are honors, same weighted credit in that. Just to add this up to now look at our mixed levels, 3 and 4, levels 2, 3, and 4, and then 2 and 3. Just over 94% of students are taking some sort of mixed level profile. I suspect with those percentages, that's true of your children as well, and what we've seen increase steadily over the years as well. The second headline or note that I made that came from this report is the increasing number of students taking at least one 4-level class over the course of their 4 years is just over 72%. That number has hovered around mid-60s, call it 2/3 over the last several years. We're seeing an increase here in this. And I think there's some reasons for it, and we'll talk about that as we get towards the end of the report. But just recognize that number's gone up, and our students are accessing rigorous curricula at some point in their 4 years and in some content area as well. In terms of students taking at least one AP course, you can see the percentage here just on that. The total line there is 68% of students taking at least one AP course, up from 64%. That number has been steadily increasing over the last 9 years. 9 years ago, in the class of 2015, it was 58.5% of students, and we're at 68% now. This is steadily moving up. This is also part of, I would say, an effort that we're not necessarily surprised by some of those numbers there. I'll pause because then that's table. Anything to add so far on those tables?
you're doing great.
Keep going. We'll talk about the how and why. So mention this. So I think there's some things to look at. So what does all of this mean? Why does it matter? And how did it happen? So first with how did it happen, there's some curricular changes that we've made that have kind of given students an opportunity to access rigorous curricula here. Our 12th grade English curriculum went through a major revision the last school year, where all 12th grade English courses are either 9 or 4 level. We had some standalone level 2 options. We still do have one co-taught level 2 class that serves a small number of students who need extra support in that. We need to continue to offer that. It provides them great resources to prepare them for post-high school, but the vast majority, everything else is 9 and 4. So with 9, and other departments also have more 9 and level 4 classes across that. We've also expanded AP opportunities for students, so we have a new AP African American Studies course. There's been increased interest in students taking AP courses, and that access has been opened in many ways. We've changed the prerequisites, and students, and you can see that in the numbers with the 10% increase over the last 9 years. So what do we think it means? One is there's just more opportunities for students to take honors and high honors courses. It's what students want to do. They're pursuing it. We can try to meet them at the time that it is right for them to do so. It means for us that there's some flexibility in the level system. Students are interested in challenging themselves, and we're providing those opportunities. And larger, I would say, is that the staff and systems that we have encourages students who want to challenge themselves. So there's some support for it, both with the staff that knows students best, and then also the systems that require that. So why does it matter? Ultimately, it's the tangible outcomes of the strategic initiatives in Framework 1. This is our intellectual growth and development. One of the specific goals in that strategic plan framework is greater access to rich and rigorous coursework. I think we're seeing some of the outcomes of that and providing just greater access and opportunities for students in that. Transition, anything on that, Paul? Talk a little bit quickly about core academics, and then, because I think this translates to section 2 that I know we may want to talk about. So one is, let me orient you to this, and then I'll highlight it here. This is the number of core academics that students take over 4 years. It's recommended that students take between 4 and 5 core academics over the course of their 4 years. So the vast majority of students will fall between 16 core academics and 20 core academics. We have students on either side of that. Fewer than 16, we also have students who exceed 20. And you can see in this table here, what I'll highlight is that the vast majority of students take somewhere in this area of 19 to 20. So this is where you would get a concentration of students. Nearly 43% of students take 19 to 20 courses, core academic courses within this range. And then it's a little fewer than 2023. We see some of that change is related to COVID. We had a little bit of a spike or an increase in the number of courses students took during COVID because some summers were locked down. We had high enrollment during summer school in 2 years at that time. And then you see here, the shift of the numbers is, just over 31% of students took fewer than 19 courses. It's higher than the previous 2 classes, so we see some of these shifts. But when we compared it to classes pre-COVID of 2017 and 2021, it's more similar to traditional patterns in doing that. So. And then lastly, the students percentage of students taking more than 20 core academic courses is pretty consistent with class. It's about a quarter of the class is taking more than 20 courses, and that includes summer school. So you get students who take 5 core during the year, that's 20. They take a summer school course, they're at 21. Civics has factored into that too. It counts as a social studies core academic course with that new requirement over the last several years. So we see a little bit of a number of students taking more than 20 at that. Anything?
I think they want to see the next.
I do too.
Time.
Should we skip electives?
No, electives is always good.
Just want to recognize
electives matter a lot.
I appreciate that, and that is true. It's important for us to the comprehensive learning experience. We're a comprehensive public high school. We offer a robust set of electives, and we want to recognize that our students are participating in this. So, we have, 64% of students take between 2 and 4 core electives. Typically, that would line up with just 2 to 4 years. Most students would take 1 elective per year. We definitely have some students who exceed that because this is what gets them up and come to school every day is their opportunities to take these particular core elective classes. And you can see that number here, 27% are taking between 4.5 and 8 You can just do just count up the number. How do you get 8 classes or more than 8 elective classes? You're taking 2 a year. You're making some choices to either take fewer core academics or take your core academics during the summer, social studies and science. These are students who are really passionate about the arts, engineering, music and theater, and we can see and know who those students are. So it's really important to the vibrancy of our learning experience. We were curious about looking at, this is new for us, so you're seeing it in its first form, in looking at, what we were trying to understand is clusters of courses, elective courses, that we put into 2 broad categories. So looking at science, technology, engineering, and math, we were really looking at, you can see that top line, non-core courses. So students take math and science as part of their graduation requirements. It's totaled up there, but we were curious, we also offer so many other courses that we would call STEM courses that are not the required math and science courses. Engineering, coding, we have and a variety of other courses that would fall in that, and then all the creative arts, music, theater, fine arts, dance, and these other ways. We wanted to cluster them together and say, what's happening with our students who seem to be both interested and maybe even concentrating in some of that. So you can see here what we did is highlight the non-core students. So, of the 866 students in this data set, 313 of them took at least, one non-core STEM class. And you can see the average is nearly, and those particular students are really interested. They took at least 2. And they may have taken other electives as well, but they definitely made a choice to say, I'm interested in something STEM. Yes, math and science, but the non-core, so that would be in our elective areas of taking that. So there's a significant number there. The creative arts is really, I think, interesting to look at. 78% of students are taking a class in the creative arts. Now, there's a graduation requirement for a fine and or practical art. So some of that's driven by a graduation requirement, but it doesn't have to be in the fine art. But we see in the creative arts students are fulfilling that. And also you can see the number of courses per student. They're exceeding it. It's nearly 4. What's that?
About 3.
It's about 3.
I think that's a copy. It's 2.97.
Thank you.
So.
That's why we have
Three's
Paul
still a
here
good
too.
number.
So we make a great pair here, history teacher, mathematician, so just so you know. So that's what we do. So anyhow, this is new. Happy to answer questions. We're still trying to make some good sense of what it means for us in our programming. Yeah.
Creative arts, do you not think that's driven by some of these colleges demanding a year of fine arts?
It is. Yeah.
Are you seeing a correlation between that, or is it too bigger?
Well, there are some, it is certainly driven by students who have, some of the college or university system, California system, requires a 1 full year of a fine art. Yes, so haven't tracked it to that, but that's certainly driving some of those decisions. So I don't think we've tracked it exactly to that. We know it falls into that. We can look at the UCal system and doing that.
Will you be offering more coding classes?
Good question. So there are some proposals right now. So we have computer science. We offer an intro to coding class right now. There is a proposal coming up for a non-traditional coding class in game design. So we're looking at some things like that. So
There's app development.
App development, iOS app development we offer. It didn't run this past school year, so it is a class that we offer. Let's get to section 2. This is class by the numbers because this transitions us to section 2, which is just to give a sense. So these are our students and the group we're talking about. Per student, they submitted, 8.7 applications per student. 360 of those students, of the 866, submitted at least one test optional application. That was 28% of total applications were test optional. So that's total applications, not students, right, in doing that. It's a decrease. We're seeing a decrease in test optional both across colleges and universities as well, going back to requiring testing. We see that trend here with our students in this class. 32% applied early decision, same as 2023, so we're at about that 1/3 of our students will continue to apply early decision. Early action is not counted in that, it's just specifically ED. And then some trends we're seeing in end-to-test optional policies at several prominent schools. They've You're reading some of the similar things we are too. It's happening. Non-academic factors like positive character attributes is something we've been tracking, working with our post-high school counseling department. In 2023, the National Association of School Counselors did a nationwide survey of post-secondary institutions about what are the ranking factors that they consider in their applicants. And ranking at the top two are rigorous. Top three are most rigorous coursework available in school. Grades, all grades, and then grades in core academic areas. And then 4 was positive characteristics and attributes, so whole person. The challenge with that is how do you measure it? How do you communicate it? Lots to talk about there. We're involved in some of that work right now, trying to measure and monitor some of those things, and happy to talk what we're working on with that. We're not the only school doing it. Lots of people are trying to measure something that seems immeasurable in some way. So self-reported academic records, students entering their own course names and grades. We're working with post-high school counseling on doing that. Some of you have seniors in the application process, may know exactly what that looks like and what we're talking about. And then trends we're watching are transparency with institutional initiatives. Schools are being very clear about what it is they want in their applicants, and they're doing that by region, by geography, by types of applicants, by types of class profiles. So we're trying to track that, and they've been clear on those with that. So we're trying to inform families of that. To table 2, I'm going to turn it over to Paul. I think this is a good place for you to pick up on matriculation.
Absolutely. So these charts show the colleges in which students chose to go. Now, I think that's a really important part of what our philosophy is, that college is a match to be made, not a prize to be won. And we really try and live that. And what we have here are the matches that were made. And we see this on data. We don't see this on some of the characteristics that Peter was talking about, but we see it on some of the course data that they have. And there's 2 ways to look at these. One is to find your favorite college and go across and see what the core academics, the AP classes, the level profile of the students who chose to go to that course, to that college. The other way to look at it is also to look just down the column and realize that students who have a particular profile actually end up at New Trier, end up going to all kinds of different colleges. So you'll see that, I mean, the number of students that are in level 3 and level 4, those 2 columns, you just see lots of different places that they go. I think that this set of options, and this set of information about what options kids are taking is just helps us as a school, and I think it helps families to say, there's going to be a match for my student. There's going to be a match for the students. They're going to find a place where they go. Now, to go. That is not to say we don't have disappointment in the senior class, depending on where they get in. But it actually is surprising and amazing. Maybe it's not surprising. When you have kids come, yes, they're disappointed and they end up choosing a school, they come back and they're really happy with the school that they end up going to. And so that disappointment turns into just happiness with where they are, how they're able to thrive when they're there. So I don't know how, 48 colleges in the table, 223 total universities. That list is at the very end, is that correct?
It is, it's on, and we're on page 8 for the full where the section 2 starts. The 223, just so you can do that, Paul, is pages 16 and 17. So
and so there's lots of time you can spend looking through this. It gives you some information. I think there's still all kinds of information that's missing about it, but it does let you know about all the different options that are out there. I think that the level profile in and of itself helps you understand that the experience of New Trier students is very different, that there are lots of ways to experience New Trier, and this chart shows you that there is a match to be made, and there are places that all these students end up going to. And again, the vast majority of them come back and say, it was great. I'm really happy with where I ended up. Other things on this chart. Let me see, are we having other charts, or are we just? letting them.
This is the only view of that? You want to
Yeah.
just walk through the 5 different tables? One is level profile, number of cores, and translate
Yeah.
what I talked about to the inputs.
Yeah, so you'll see from page 8 on, there are a set of tables. One is the level profile. You saw the information on that earlier, but this then breaks it down by where the students went to school. You'll see that the number of AP courses is also there, giving you some sense of where students went. If, depending on your student, and I certainly had at least one of my 4 kids who were in that 0 AP column, who ended up going to college and loving where they went, and look at all the options that even those students are taking advantage of based on their Nutrier experience. Then we have the number of core academic classes as well, and then the number of elective classes. I think it's, again, please feel free, if you haven't already, to spend hours looking at it and sort of working through what it might mean for your student. The last page, page 15, then just breaks down by conference, which just has gotten more and more confusing. What is the Big Ten anymore?
It's the Big 20.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. But it creates some good football. We'll create some good football rivalries, I guess. But I think that it allows some information based on where students are going, where there are smaller numbers. So the reason why we don't show every college where students go to based on level profile is we are worried about privacy and giving information out about a student without really being aware of it. So as the numbers get small and you're able to then talk about, well, this was their level profile and this was then their number of electives they took, et cetera, you end up learning something about the student which we don't want to have out there. So that's why we just do schools that have 5 or more. But this gives a little bit of a look at how many of our students went to each of those conferences. The Ivy League is one in which people are, a set of our families are really interested in to see how many of our students went there. Not many of those schools end up on the top 5 or more. Cornell did this time with 5. But it gives that information to the community. And then it ends with just the whole list of schools.
The whole list, that, again, the subset of kids who were here for all 4 years, or the whole graduating class?
That's the whole graduating class.
And is that consistent, over 200?
Oh, definitely over 200. I think what is it, 223 this year. Last year it was like 240 or something like that. You get so many onesies and twosies in there, so yes. But that's consistent. Over 200, 225, 240.
What's interesting about that to me, that when I first saw that number years ago of how many, it surprised me a little bit. It's like, wow, that's a lot. And our post-high school counseling department, their ability to connect kids and support kids in all these different ways, I think is great. And so they know a lot about almost all of these institutions. I'm sure some kid throws them a curveball every once in a while. But you know, we've over time we've sent a number of kids to almost all these schools.
Yeah, what may throw them a curveball, there's 7 schools, there's 7 non-US schools in there. So students are going, to schools across the world. Canada and Europe mostly, but there's a few others in there too. So, yeah. Open it up for some questions.
I think so. Yes.
This is great how you guys explained it. Almost a little unrelated, but have you heard anything anecdotally about population changes for class of like 2025 entering college next year? And there's a little bit of a buzz about numbers being down. Do you guys hear much of that or not yet?
Not much, really.
No.
The class size is down. It matches that. We're in it.
But across the country, you're
yeah,
saying
smaller
numbers are
class
down.
size. Not really. Actually, I have not yet. So, yeah. Is that something you're hearing and reading that, it's, yeah. It has not really come into anything I've read. I don't know if you've seen much about that.
I haven't, but I think in terms of Potentially that might change some outcomes, I think, in terms of our process and getting kids through that process and partnering with families on it. Probably doesn't change that much because it really is about the match for the student. Questions? Thoughts?
So I get a lot of questions, right, because I've been on the MTK. So two of the things that people pointed out, they love to, right? So the more you give them, the more they're gonna ask.
Yeah.
So let's put that in that category.
Sure.
I'm not saying
Yeah.
that, but I'm just saying that's how it comes out. The number of kids that are going for sports seems to be increasing. And so they said that would maybe be a little helpful just to know, we've gone from maybe 10 kids going for sports and now we're at like 100. Maybe Division I, Division III, just in total, just to know maybe that trend of, listen, a lot more of our kids are looking to play their sport beyond New Jersey. And the same with fine arts, the number of kids that are going, specifically, I think the schools that are asking for the portfolios, that have to do that extra piece. So not just
Auditions as well, yeah. Yeah.
I think, and again, they're just looking for trends.
Sure.
It would be interesting, like,
Yeah.
are there more?
Yeah.
It seems like there are more, because if you look at these lists too, there's so many more art schools listed than I think I ever remember.
Yeah, it's,
So that would just be interesting, like, yes, a lot more of our kids are looking to do specialized things after.
that's interesting. Yeah.
I think that's a good. It's a
is.
good question. It's a good observation. We'll think on how we get that data, and it would probably be in broad strokes. We probably can't do the athlete on that. Circle the cell that's the athlete.
Like, this is how many people
Trends.
here.
Yeah.
This is how many people
That.
people
Yep.
are good in this class. This
Right.
is how
I
many
think
people
that could
in
be.
this class, and people drop out, whatever. But
Sure.
just-
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's
It's good. It's interesting.
Like it's increasing.
yeah.
The specializations general are increasing.
Yeah.
Not just sports, but arts.
Yep.
It's good. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
How close are you guys able to track kids who transfer after freshman year? Is that something that it's either, I mean, I know it's almost impossible to get people to do anything like that, but I don't know if it's any
Yeah, it's a good question. Our entree into that would be kids that ask for a transcript after, during their year after their senior year, who have gone somewhere. We don't have any reports on that. We may have some of that data, but we haven't really done much with it. I think it's a really important question.
It
though.
is. We've talked about it. Transfer data, matriculation in 4, 5, and 6 years as well, so.
I had a class of 21, so it was all just messed up for him.
Yeah.
And he went to the absolute wrong school, so
Yeah.
he transferred to the school he was always supposed to go to, so to speak. And so there's his girlfriend who was also a New Year 21, and it seems like a lot of the kids in that
Yeah.
transferred were my 20 class kids that didn't go to school,
Yeah.
didn't go to things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious if
Yeah.
that's how, if you ever sent out a survey, or, I mean, that's a lot.
That COVID area, that's a mess.
Yeah.
We're still all feeling a little bit of it, but we're getting through it. We're ready to put that behind us. But here's what's true before COVID, and it's going to continue to be true, which is that the vision that my student will pick a college, go there for 4 years, graduate, and move on with their life is not something that is as common as people think it is. We do get some data from a place called the National Student Clearinghouse, and the state of Illinois also reports on it as well, that does allow us to see the number of colleges that kids go to. And what's interesting is when you see kids that graduate in that data, and this is their third college. Now, sometimes it's a summer school college, but sometimes it's a transfer, and that's data that's out there and we're looking at. We don't have anything formal right now that we report on with it, but I think it's an area for exploration in the future, and that'll help us a little bit. It's a little bit far back because when you talk about kids that graduated 6 years ago, now we're talking about the class of 2018 that did did whatever they did during college, but still informative longitudinally, that this seems to be what's happening. So I think that that message is really important, that it's not just a 4-year. Of course, many kids do, but more don't than most people think.
Yeah.
I think part of it, from my perspective, having put 2 kids through college now, and hearing the way kids are talking about, well, you know, about their trade school, it's like, no.
Yeah.
Like, I think that is something
Yeah.
that is really pressure filled. And I've had friends who's all, you know, continuing to
Yep.
like the school year. And it's like, I think it makes people a little bit nuts.
Mhm.
So you have to pick a trade school, you have to stick with that. It's going to be everything you ever wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much
Yeah.
opportunity you give that in the post-high school counseling, but I think it would be helpful.
We give it quite a bit, as Paul was talking about, and I think you all know it if you've been through the process, is that college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. I think some people might be skeptical of that message until you put a few kids through college and you realize it is a match to be made. And, you know, I think many could share a similar story on that. But the pressure is real. So I think we try to counter that. That pressure is real from forces that we don't control, right? I mean, I don't want to blame social media and all of it, but the power of TikTok and Instagram for these colleges and universities, I mean, it's part of their programming in what they do and recruiting. So kids see it, you know, so it's tough.
So I think that we live the match to be made, not a prize to be won, whole thing. And you better decide by November 1st, your senior year, what that match is. Because however many % of our kids.
The match and the dream, the perfect school.
What is it?
Yeah.
80.
What's that?
82% of our kids are applying by the November 1st deadline.
Yeah.
Some decision, some action early.
Some early, the combination.
Is it 82?
It's a third that are early decision then, and I think it's another
15%
50,
or so.
Yeah, so it's a lot of kids.
Yeah, and you know the landscape has changed. I think that when it went to optional testing or no testing, that changed things for how schools were selecting. We've seen a little bit of a move back to, yeah, we're going to get your test scores now, because we think that actually helps the college figure out who is going to be successful at their institution. And so our post-high school counseling department stays in touch with admissions offices all over. We just had some admissions officers in. We had a little one-day thing that Peter had put together, where we had some people who are looking at the future of schools, some of the ideas you were talking about what are those durable or soft skills that kids have or are learning, and how do those help them be successful in college? And the answer is they do. As an example, when we were going through all our attendance issues, and all high schools were going through attendance issues, the way that played out in college was kids stopped going to class, and they stopped being as successful as they were there. That's just one example of a skill. Do what you're supposed to do, you know. But we had admissions officers, we had some people who are leading the work in future programming on ideas like that, as well as a few of our high schools that we work with around the country. Very interesting, and that's the kind of thing we try and keep doing to keep learning, because this is not static at all. And so that's kind of what we have to do.
When do the kids start working with the post-high school department?
They start meetings with families begin in 11th grade. Have moved that programming, though, depending on how long you've been here, starting at 9th grade, though. So we have a post-high school liaison at 9th grade here at the Northfield campus. We're working on some new programming around interest inventories that come through the work with post-high school counseling that we're doing with our new college and career platform. I don't know if any of you remember Naviance. We've moved away from Naviance to something called Maya Learning, and working with 9th graders to just surface some interests. How does that translate to what courses you might take, what clubs and activities you might want to be involved in, and then in 10th grade, starting that again, working with post-high school counseling as a group, and then individual meetings in 11th grade.
Other questions, comments, thoughts, things you've read?
So, okay, can we go back to the levels? Do you guys track anything about the entrance test right? Which kind of, let's say, suggested levels. Let's go with suggested. And then how many people change? Because I feel an incredible number of calls about this. And I can't, now that I've had 3 kids go through, I can't say the test is the best tool ever in and of itself. I think I started off saying you should follow the test and do exactly what the test says, and then I've come to maybe adjust that a little bit. So I think it would be helpful, like, I've had this, the multiple level thing with all of my children, but some of it is because the level they were tested into based on one day. I think there's some understanding, at least my understanding was that it was the test plus talking to the 8th grade teachers, plus talking to whatever, and I'm not quite sure that's all being done. I kind of feel like less people are believing the test and are making changes, so I'm just curious if you're tracking, this is the number of people who are going against what the test is telling.
We do track. I mean, we know how many students and families make a choice different than the original placement, and it's just over 50%. So over 50% of incoming 9th graders will make a level change from the original recommendations. At least one. Some make multiple. The recommendation or guidance is, one is to encourage it, right? To recognize that if you're going to change levels, it may be really beneficial for your student, and think about it as a 4-year sequence and not a 1-year plan. I mean, I think there's some interest in everything's got to happen in 9th grade, and the guidance is typically, you think about this as a 4-year plan and doing that. So over 50% make that. There's some, but not much more than that as it translates to this report as well. So.
Yeah, and there was one switch that was made, and I don't remember what year it was, where instead of just saying level 3, there's this high, low, just to give a little bit more sense. Our experience is that partnering with families on this is what's most important, because parents know their kids, particularly if you have had a student go through, then you know a lot and you have some sense of how that student may react. And that's why we have an open process. It may not feel open to parents, like, well, you said 3, and I really think this is a place where my kid should go into level 4. So that you may feel constrained by it, but I'm hoping that leads to a conversation. And I think there are a lot of conversations that happen around that time with the school. It's open, we buy into it. It has the value that it does in the test, which I think it is a guide. And then there are all these other skills that kids have or don't have that impact how successful they might be. And it's also where they'll learn the most. It's not just what grade they'll get. I think that just my example in having taught math for years is having a number of students in advanced math who maybe lacked some of the other skills of doing their homework and those kinds of things, maybe it's just doing your homework. They were in the right place. I just had to figure out how to support them, because they weren't going to learn more math being in a level 3 class. They needed to be in a level 4 class with that kind of conversation and topics that happened. So, are you willing to accept a C in that class because it's the right place for the kid? I think it was the right place for a set of kids that I taught back in the day. So there's a lot of conversations. The other thing is I'll talk about the 4-year picture. Yes, there are kids that get their footing freshman year, and I think a successful freshman year is really important. Good grades, not overwhelmed, not stressed out, working hard, but not over the top. And then you can start figuring out how to level up your plan as a family or as a student. That can include academic levels, that can include involvement in activities outside of school or extracurriculars or clubs. How do you make sure you're successful and then build into that success sophomore through senior year? I'm for it. So you do see kids that might have been a little conservative in their freshman year do really well and then move on and move up. you also see kids that aren't conservative and don't do so well, and you end up just having you end up with a difficult freshman year. When a kid's overwhelmed at that age, it's hard for them to learn anything, right? They're just certainly in the subject that they're really struggling with, but also just in their class, in their classes overall. The stress can be a lot. We try and be flexible with that, helping parents and kids move to the right, a class that might be better for them at that time. But it's not easy. There's not a formula for it. It's certainly not, the test is not, it's a guide, but not a formula for the
Well, I
level.
think that going into the 8th grade, those meetings are starting to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're changing because they want their kid to move up. I'm saying a lot of them are changing. I mean, my husband, we put 3 kids through, he still doesn't understand this level. He just doesn't. He can't. He didn't grow up here. He absolutely does not understand.
Yeah.
So I think it's more of math. They're calling because they just don't understand. And what are those other skills? Like if my kid does a ton of their homework, they do this, or,
Right.
English, a lot of reading, math, is,
Right.
it's different in every class. So I think those 8th grade meetings are super important.
Those have been good, but they're not the answer to everything. I think but continued dialogue is what we hope, families.
Or in terms of, between, say, freshman and sophomore year, in terms of course selection, and also from the student standpoint, like, in terms of how, the curriculum is approached at a level 3 versus a level 4, like, to go between levels, between years, how hard of an adjustment is that?
I'll try that. Well, it's very student dependent on that. I think working with parents and students and teachers to give some sense of what that is. I would encourage a conversation if that's a consideration with the current teacher in that subject area in making that change. It's not impossible. It's certainly, I think there's a change in a couple areas to consider. One is a level of independent work that might be required in a level 4 class in 10th grade that wasn't necessarily so in 9th grade. So there's that change. 9th to 10th is also a big jump. The level change, I think it's doable, and it should be doable for students who are capable and motivated to do so. And I think our teachers are adjusting to that, recognizing what experiences students have had and how they can be successful. To me, it goes back to that conversation with a parent, teacher, and student to know what they're getting into and how they can be successful in pre-planning for that. So that starts to come up, somewhat soon. January is when we'll start new course selections for the following school year. So that's the place it can be done, and it's a sequence for what's the right course at the right time at the right place. So, if a student is excelling in one particular area, that may be the time to think about it. A student may also be doing really well at level 2 or level 3, and it doesn't necessarily mean the student is ready for or should be for the next level. I think that you look at that over a 4-year sequence. So,
I think the other piece of it is when we have our incoming freshmen, we only really know what's on paper. Then we do have a conversation if a parent wants to engage in that at the sender school. Once they're here, our teachers have experience and worked with the kids. So if we have a teacher saying, I think you can move into level 4 class next year, I think the student and the parents should take that very seriously because they've experienced the kid, they know how they think, and the like. You'll often get into a situation where the kid's kind of like, I want to do this. The family's like, yeah, we want to support you. And the teacher's kind of like, maybe. And that's where it does get a little difficult. But I think further conversation with the teacher is what I would hope would happen, which is, what would you like to see in my student to really feel like that's going to be successful? And yeah, some thoughts.
Students, alumni who have said that, to go from a level 3 and then to try and get into a level 4, maybe in terms of capacity or number of spaces, like you reference to level 4s from freshman year to sophomore year. Like, is there an issue with that, with capacity?
With just sort of moving?
Yeah.
So
like accommodating people wanting to come into level 4 class.
So there's never an issue accommodating people when it's through the course registration process. What Peter goes through with every department chair is, here's what kids signed up for, here's how many teachers we have. And that includes kids who move from one level to another. It does get tricky, and there's nothing specific about the situation where it gets tricky, but absolutely we have some courses that have more students are full, and some have however many kids per class, that it's difficult to make that change for a student. And there are other times when it just is easy and it works out pretty well. Is that your question? Sort of? That wasn't it. Maybe? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, kids can begin taking AP courses in junior year?
That's right.
And then how are they selected for that? Is there a test here to that, or do they enroll in from level 4?
Good question.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's a good question. There's no additional test for it. So for many students, it's the natural progression of their course. So they're in a 10th grade course. That's level 4. The next course that's open to them is they might have a couple options in 11th grade. U.S. History, AP U.S. History, or AP Language for English, or they could have a non-AP option in 4-level American Studies, which is the combination English History. There's no prerequisite for it. There's no testing into it. In that, I will say the majority of students are sequencing from English or a 4-level 10th grade class to an 11th grade class. It's open to students at other levels as well. So we don't see many of them taking. We're encouraging students, though, to do that. We've had teachers and programs that are looking at accessing that. So I think you saw that in some of the numbers there, in the increase in students taking that, but no additional test or prerequisite. Science has some prerequisites, and you can kind of see that in the program of studies, but those are College Board prerequisites. We have some level prerequisites for science, but otherwise, no additional testing.
My question is about AP courses. So, generally speaking, anecdotally, we've heard from students at other schools are maybe able to take AP classes starting sophomore year into junior year.
Yeah.
So they obviously end up taking more AP courses over the course of their high school career. How is that reconciled at the college application level when comparing like a student from New Trier versus a student from Stevenson?
Good question. It's reconciled in a couple ways. One is our post-high school counselors, as Paul was alluding to, work very closely with those college admissions officers and know them well. They know New Trier's program. That's unique compared to some of the other schools, that we have 3 levels, college prep, honors, and a high honors. The vast majority of schools do not have a high honors curriculum. They might just go straight into AP, so they would have a college prep or what they might call regular, and then honors, and then an AP level. So one is knowing that. We also make it, with each student transcript, we produce a class profile. This is something that high schools create, is a school profile, and it gives the information about the curriculum that's available, the percentage and number of students who've taken the levels that you see here. It has achievement data, SAT, ACT, AP data, so they see that. And included in that profile, importantly, is that it's clear that New Trier's only allows students in 11th and 12th grade to take AP classes. So that's the reconciliation there of how colleges and universities know about it for our programming. And then an explanation of what our students do take at level 4, which is different from other schools that may not have that opportunity. So, yeah.
I think that, I think what colleges do, because there are so many different schools out there, they're looking at what is the most rigorous set of courses that a student could take, and where does this student then sort of match that? Is it the most rigorous? Is it just a little bit less? And so they understand us, and that's one good thing about being a large school. So they know us. So they're able to match it against what's the most rigorous New Trier. They get it. They get that freshmen at New Trier are not taking AP courses, and that there's AP whatever at certain schools that they're taking. We can have some philosophical conversation about what it means to get college credit as a freshman in high school versus what is a rigorous preparation for college, and what does that look like over 4 years? Maybe another NTPA at some point. We can do that. Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's always fun. Great questions.
Thank you.
And if you have any other ideas about how this report could be improved, email one of us.
Yeah.
Just let us know. I think we'll be thinking on that, just sort of how do we give that picture over time of how athletics and specialization has changed for our students and applications, right? Good. Thank you.
Thank you.